Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi. How are you looking back on your previous album, 2008? What are your first thoughts on that album?
The albums that came out earlier?
No, I mean the previous one.
The one Folie, Deux?
Yeah?
I like it a lot. You know, I think that it was a transitional album for us, you know, and I think that in Europe it was like, you know, when we play those songs at festivals now, like we play I Don't Care or whatever, like kids go pretty crazy, so I have fond memories of it.
Well, you say transitional album? Between what sort of stages for you as a band?
We were trying to, I mean, I think we were at the breaking point of our band, and if we had kept going, I think we would have imploded. So at that point, we put out the album, went on tour to promoted it, and then we took a break for 3 or 4 years.
Do you agree? Imploded?
I mean, yeah, we needed a break. I think that was kind of the leading up to the point where we really needed the break.
Yeah. Were you, when you stopped, let's say, after the previous album, were you afraid the band was not coming back together?
You know, I mean, I don't think that there was a definite. None of it was definite. You know, like the timing or that it would happen, I don't think were definite. You know, and of course there's trepidation because this is like the only thing you've known, you know, as far as this world, you know, and being an adult and stuff. So yeah, of course. But I think some of that, like if there isn't that kind of, I wouldn't even like anxiety more than fears. I mean, if there wasn't that anxiety or that kind of tension, it wouldn't feel as sweet when it came back.
Did you stay in touch?
Oh yeah.
How? Did you visit each other or?
Yeah, I mean, like we would go hang out with each other. We don't all live in the same city, but like when we would be in the same city as each other, we'd meet up and we emailed each other and texted. You know, Patrick and Joe got married. We were all there at their weddings and that kind of stuff. You know.
And what did you do music-wise during the breakup? What did you do music-wise?
I did a few different projects. I filled in for some bands. I did a band with Joe called The Damn Things. Just whatever I could. Just had fun.
I mostly DJ'd and did a lot of stuff like that. I did a project called Black Cards, put out an EP. I mean, like most of it was time off to like live my life. You know, I feel like we give so much of, or at the time we'd given so much of ourselves to the world that it's like you needed to make some stuff just for you again.
What was the thing that was for you that you really missed in hindsight when you finally returned to doing that again?
I mean, I miss being on stage with these guys, you know, I mean, it's just a different energy, you know, I mean, it's fun to do other things, you know, and it's fun to, you know, live life, but there is something that's like inherently special about when the four of us are on stage.
Okay. Can you take us back to, well, the first time actually you were kind of coming back together? Was it a phone call or was it something?
Yeah, we had I think when it got real was we had a meeting in New York that lasted like 7 or 8 hours at our manager's apartment, and that was, I think, for me, that was the moment it got real. But, you know, like, when we plugged in for the first time was probably when you're like, oh yeah, this is actually happening.
Yeah. And were the songs written already for the new album, or?
No, we were in the process of writing them. Like, we'd started. We don't write in the room with each other a lot, you know, so we'd started writing, and then when we got in the studio with Butch Walker was when we really, like, solidified it. And,
well, were you actually trying to really find your sound? Because, well, this album is really a comeback for you. Do you also feel it this way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a comeback album, but in some ways we were gone for so long, it's like a version 2.0, you know, it's like the next... It's like the sequel or something, you know. I think it wasn't, you know. I mean, I think that it was important that it does sound different and sonically different, and everything about the you know, like the way you listen to it is different. But I think it was pretty organic. Like we didn't like go into the studio and go like, oh, now we gotta like make it sound like 2013. It was just kind of like, let's do like the most bare bones version of Fall Out Boy that we can do.
And in hindsight, how come it turned out the sound that it has turned out now? Can you pinpoint it?
I think that there's a lot of reasons that it sounds the way it does. I think one, we kind of fine-tooth, or we kind of like figured out the demoing process, so I think a lot of the demoing kind of ended up on the album. We also really, when we were talking about doing the most distilled version of Fall Out Boy that we could do, part of that includes like, we were a band that did like multi-track of everything, and this album really doesn't have that. This album's really sparse as far as that kind of production goes, and I think that that defined the sound, like the actual sonic quality of the album.
And are there certain key songs that once you wrote that song, you thought, well, this is the way we are going to go?
I think that when Patrick came up with Where'd the Party Go and Just Went Yesterday, that was like, well, okay, now we should, like that was compelling music. And then when we did the verse for, we got the verse done for my song What You Did in the Dark, was really when it was like, now we got to build a thing around this, album around it.
So those two songs are the key songs for this album?
They were the key songs for the building of this album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the album is called Save Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
What is rock and roll nowadays?
Haha, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that in the United States especially, there's this idea that rock and roll is like this quaint thing, kind of, you know, like it's like dads and leather jackets, and you know, like it's kind of, it's really boring, you know, and it's like, I think that when we talk about rock and roll, especially in the States, and like we haven't been worldwide enough on this album to really know, but when we talk about it in the States, people like dismiss Skrillex and they dismiss Kanye West and, you know, Kendrick Lamar, and those guys are like what rock and roll is in the United States for the most part, because it's dangerous and it's forward thinking and it's progressive. And the idea was that we just think that there should be maybe a four-piece or five-piece band that plays rock music that gets played on pop radio.
Yeah. So let's say rock and roll is now more about the attitude and less about, well, how the band is being constructed?
I think that rock and roll was always an idea. It was an attitude, you know, and then people turned it into like a uniform and a certain sound, you know, and I think that that is detrimental to, like, we wouldn't be in bands if there weren't bands that were doing like awesome stuff to look up to, you know, and I think that it's detrimental to the next generation of like punk rock bands and rock bands to not set examples, I guess.
Okay. Well, in last question, in the 5 years from 2003 until 2008, you released 4 albums. What are you going to do until 2018?
Yikes, I don't know. The last one we took 3.5 years off. Hopefully we don't need 3.5 more years. But
will you be recording as many albums as you did in that short time frame, or will you take it less?
I think it all depends on the songs and like the inspiration. And
I think the interesting thing is also like the industry shifted while we were like in that period. It went from an album industry to a singles industry. Now people just like really consume like songs. So I don't see why we couldn't put more songs out.
So maybe less albums, more songs.
Yeah, maybe. You heard it here first.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.